So the selfing is activity, and if the activity is sort of having its way, there'll be a sense that you're the one that's doing it, or it's being done to you. So people hear about selfing and they go, oh, I've been selfing all day. That's not selfing. Yeah? The feeling of being the one who's been selfing all day, that's the identification as a self. Yes? And then the feeling of the one that selfing's been driving me crazy, that feeling of being the one driven crazy by the mental state is also the identification as self. Yeah? It's the one that's always prior to everything. So either you're connected or you're not connected. It's the same one connected, same one not connected. Yeah? Same one close, same one far, same one near, same one whatever, same one whatever. The two different, because it's a dualistic dream here, or expression, or dreaming. So the two-pronged thing of the fork, there's just the one handle, which is a sense of you, and then you're getting fed shit basically all day, really, in a way. But you know that sense of you is the product of selfing. Yeah. So if you're listening to the thought system, see, you're going to hear thoughts, but there's another sense of listening to it which is different. Yeah. Hearing thoughts is just what happens. There's conscious contact, so you're hearing them. You're conscious, so something comes into the field of consciousness, you're going to be conscious of it, yeah? Subtle things and then crude things, yeah? So thoughts are more subtle, let's say, but they're still things, in a way, yeah? So the consciousness becomes in contact with them. See, but the idea of the selfing is that you're the one, yes, that's doing everything. Like you're the one who's conscious and you're the one who gets unconscious. Yeah, you're the one who's thinking, you're the one who's feeling, you're the one who's doing, you're the one who's having, you're the one who's not having, you're the one who's not doing. Yeah, there's always this assumption or inference or a presupposing that there's a one prior to the two activities. Yes? Yeah. So there's only we'll start, I guess. Yeah, I feel like it's happening already. I feel like it's happening, sound like it's part of a horror movie. I feel like it's happening. I can feel the possession coming over me. It may not make sense, but because again, we did something this morning at a recovery event. Yeah. And I hear this a lot, which is, I like what you say, but everything goes over my head, yeah? Because this message that's happening now isn't directed at you. It's directed at Big M Mind, yeah? And basically, we're attempting to inform Big M Mind in a sense of like it doesn't know already, but we're attempting to sort of tickle Big M Mind to take a look at what's running around as you all day. And maybe it will see that it's not that, yeah? So the message is always seemingly going over everyone's head because it's not directed at you. It's more, you're talking to mind about a you, not talking to you about mind. Yeah? Self-centeredness is always going to think you're talking to me about mind, but we're talking to mind about a you, because there is no you, there's a you. Yeah, a you, just one of thousands, yeah, and then you become identified with that one, and it's called you from that point on. And then at some point, it gets crowned the most infinite special you, which is me, and then you're really up shit's creek, yeah, because then no one understands you, no one thinks like you, no one feels like you, yeah. Yes, well, and so the selfing's main movement, yes, this movement, it's a movement in and of itself. It's agitation that begets agitation. The selfing is never going to rest in peace. It doesn't. When it comes in contact with peace, it actually uses peace as a topic to produce agitation. Like, I'm not in peace. I've lost the peace. Yeah. It will use an enlightenment. It doesn't. Look at what it's done with the term enlightenment. You know, enlightenment implies cessation of all suffering, yet most of us, our relationship to that term is causing angst. Yeah, because we're not enlightened. You know, what is enlightened doesn't know it's enlightened. It's being enlightenment. Yeah, it's not knowing enlightened. It's being enlightenment. Awareness is not doing awareness, it's being aware. There's no thought or effort in it. It's being. Yeah. So the selfing, it's in the thought system, yes? And like a great master, we've been sharing this earlier, well, I'll share it again. Ramana Maharshi, a great master, I would say he was, you know, still is actually. A master, he would constantly point this out, that the problem or the root of all this is there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing, which is this body, yes? Yeah, and then trying to get salvation, relief, happiness for the non-existent thing. That's the whole essence of selfing. Selfing is presupposing that you're a self, yeah? A long-lasting, independent, separate entity, a body, so to speak, identified as a body. That becomes the new starting point and end point, and that's why we don't see the game board well, because we're not at square zero, we're at square three. And from square three, Monopoly looks a lot different than from square zero. So this is what it does. So the main movement of selfing is how it does this, how it keeps inferring and reinforcing and implying and presupposing the non-existent thing. It claims all the activities of what we be called living, you know, like this. Feelings and thoughts, yes, and actions. Well, then it basically implies that you're the doer of all the actions, you're the thinker of the thoughts, you're the feeler of the feelings, yes? So everything that the mental state becomes aware of through consciousness or through awareness, yeah, the mental state claims and says, I'm the one. Yeah. So now that's the way it can neuter what could never be forgotten. It just claims it. So it can't get rid of awareness or consciousness. It actually neuters it by saying, I'm conscious and I'm aware. So now the mental state has become the supreme deity, yes? And awareness and beingness are like attributes it can have or not have, yeah? Both based on it, not on the awareness or consciousness. They now become based on it, yeah? This is the playing of God in the selfing. So now the selfing claims everything. That's its movement. I'm telling you, I've seen the whole beast, you know. Don't believe me or not, but I've seen the beast of it. And there is no beast, it's an activity. That's all it is. It's an activity, and it needs us to comply with it. If you abstain from it, if there's abstinence to thoughts, there will be a sense of presence available that you will never have available to you through thoughts. But if there's an abstaining of thoughts, which is not a choice or an activity, it's a result of certain things, and the abstaining is you will be hearing thoughts, but you will not be listening to thoughts. Because usually why we're mostly listening to thoughts, they're cast as ours and about us, really. I would not listen to thoughts about Stanley if I had if I could change the knob, and my thing was thinking about Stanley 5 years ago, and if Stanley wouldn't have bought that dress, or, well, not dress, that's revealing too much about Stanley. If Stanley wouldn't have done that, then everything would have turned out great. That's not going to happen. Now, Paul, I will continue to go back there, and my attention and interest will follow every thought back into what's not happening. If it's me, if it's about me, if it's about someone else, I could care fucking less. So you see, it's not that the thoughts aren't that enticing, yeah? It's that they're about you. That's the glue. That's the bonding activity of selfing. And see, the whole thing of selfing is an activity, and the bonding can only seem to be so. You are never what you think you are, ever. You never will be, you never were. It's an impossibility. But in time here, time is an activity of the dreaming. In time and space, you can seem to be what you're not. And seem means it appears to be true or false to you. So something that's false, which is, there is no fucking way in hell you're an action figure and an action figure own, can seem to be true if that which is true believes it, which is us. We are the reality. And we're lending reality to things through being identified as a thing. That's it. That's what's happening here. Yes? And so you want to see what's supporting that happening. It doesn't make anything happen, but it's a happening. Yeah? It's an activity. And that which is, if it falls for it, will make it seem to be real. And that's why, like in recovery, I come from a recovery group, and when I first went in, there was this noticeable pattern I'd listen to people share where people would have the worst thing ever happen to them. They were very clear about it. It was that day I got pulled over and I got put into the drunk tank, and that's, I had to go to court. That was the worst thing. And they built a little mental altar there, and the mental state worshipped it and used it to excuse a lot of other shit it had nothing to do with. That's why I didn't get married, is because that happened, and just insane fucking, stuff. And then they come into AA and certain things change, and then they see it as the best thing that ever happened to them. Now that's a pretty damn good example of how could the worst thing turn into the best thing. It would take a lot of time, if something really was the worst thing, to rehabilitate it into the best thing. I mean, a whole lot of time, wouldn't it? The worst. The worst, and a lot of things have happened, but this is the worst thing. So that's there's no more worse than this. It's like the worst of worst. And then suddenly, it's going to go through like a giant car wash and get turned into the best as I come out, like a shiny Prius. No, it wasn't the worst, nor is it the best. It's the meaning you and I gave it. Yeah? So in one condition, you've given it the meaning, that was the worst bit of luck I ever had, getting pulled over by the cops. After a few years of recovery, you say, hey, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. What's the role player there? The event itself or us? Us. Like the Course in Miracles, like it or not, it's a pretty interesting download. And it's not from here, that is for sure. Lesson 2 is a simple diagnostic of what's happening here, right now, which is you and I give everything all the meaning it has. That's what's happening, yeah? That's what we do. We are meaning givers. Everything is inherently meaningless, and then we give meaning to things, yeah? And now we believe we're doing it, but this has been given a meaning, yeah? And this has been given a meaning of being you, yeah? Now you may want to correct all these other meanings you're giving to things, but it would be really wise to see if there's a possibility that this could be corrected. Because if this isn't corrected, all those other meanings you change will morph into another example of this. Yes? So I would think, so when you're hearing these statements like you and I give everything all the meaning it has, we think the meaning is starting from here, but it's not starting from here. This is a meaning giver. It has been given a meaning called you. It has been given a meaning, you're conscious. You're conscious. It's not like consciousness, there's an appearance of you in consciousness. No, you're conscious. You're the one who's seeing. You're the one who's hearing. You're the one who's feeling. You definitely are the one who's tasting and smelling, yes? So this is how it gets rid of what it can't get rid of. It claims it. So now consciousness is not a threat at all. It keeps on running its story, and when there's a brilliant clarity, it's yours. When you enter into a deep dark tunnel, it's you. You don't see anything larger than you all freaking for years. Yeah? So you become sort of like the center of a mental universe. Yeah? Which is it's a trip, and then the mental state plays God, but it's always getting incredibly upset because things aren't going its fucking way, you know what I mean? It's a very powerless God, you know what I mean? It has one thing, a big megaphone, and it seems to have our attention, so it just keeps shouting at us all day, and we fucking fall for it, And then we're like begging, we're like walking around with begging bowls. Please, let me just not fuck up that picnic I'm going to next week. It used to come out a big idea of success, you know what I mean? Please don't let me get arrested again. That was my idea of success out there. It was like insane. I mean, it got downsized so much. So the claiming, incredibly, watch it. If you see it, one of the times you see it, the emphasis will be on the seeing of it, not on what you're seeing. Yeah? Because when the emphasis is on what you're seeing, the mental state will use that to point to the imaginary you. But if you can just see it, yeah, there'll be a point where the emphasis won't be on this, boomeranging back to this. It will be on this from here, from the seeing. And you and I are prior to thought. Yeah? If you want to look at it as a linear thing, just to get a point across. You and I are prior to thought. We're not a product of thought, nor are we the thinker of thought. We're prior to thoughts. Yeah? That's where the solution lies. And you're not probably going to arrive there through thought. The system of thought is a very tiny system. Yeah? And the idea of being a self only exists in that system. You're not going to transcend the system that's making it. It doesn't have any reality anywhere other in this little seemingly storyline, this dream. Yeah? So selfing can never get out of self because there's never been a self to be in, to tell you the truth. And this is the point. So there's the claiming. The idea of the selfing is the constant broadcasting of K-Paul, just running the same old golden oldies, fucking buying the same old songs, all this, all day, all that. And all of this activity is just to reinforce that presupposing of the non-existent thing. And at that point, that now wants to get salvation for that thing, happiness for that thing, relief for that thing, success for that thing. Yes? All of it. Once it's in place, whatever can arise will be for that thing. That is non-existent. See, this is the dilemma with a lot of spiritual seeking, is because you can seek tons of things, but you cannot seek what's seeing, because you are it. Yeah? You cannot seek what you are. You can learn about what you're not, which hopefully will drop you into finding out about what you are, but you're never going to know yourself as a topic. Like, that's why Ramana says to know God is to be God. To know God is to be God. Like that. Boom. Yeah. Everything else, to know of something, is to become a knower of it. But in this condition, in this state of your own nature, to know is to be. Not become a knower of it, not to become an understander of it, but to be it. And how long does that transformation take? No time at all, because it's always been the case. This, in fact, can only reach a level of seemingly so. It has to have you to appear to be real or false too. Yeah? This isn't... You are prior to everything. The only reality there is what's looking out of our heads right now. That's the reality. That which is seeing is never going to be caught a glimpse of. You're never going to see it. You're never going to hear it, that's hearing. You're never going to feel what's feeling. You're never going to taste what's tasting. You're never going to smell what's smelling. It's not a thing. You can't have an experience of it. You cannot have an experience of it. You would have to be something else to have an experience of it, and you're not. Yeah? That non-existent thing would have to be emphasized to you to launch out on an experiential adventure to find it. You would have to be identified as a non-existent thing to think that experience was the logical course. When you realize you're not an existent thing, it's obvious that you are it. Yeah? It intimates yourself, and it's totally, totally experience-free. There's no chance of having any experience ever of it. Yeah? That's the good news. Because what? Experiences come and go. How many experiences have we seemed to have? Where are they now? If you could have a box you could collect them in, they would disappear anyway. Like they say in neuroscience, every time you try to remember some event, All you can remember is a memory of it. All you can remember is a memory of it. You know? You don't even know. You could have been in a hospital this morning and they could have just filed a whole new memory bank, and now you're thinking you were a great jock and you were running and playing football, and the day before you were a woman, something. You know, you don't know. Just download, and of course, what are you relying on? There's no reality we're relying on. We're relying on a magic, yeah? A magic of giving life to a non-existent thing. How could something that isn't so seem to be so? It can only seem to be so if what so believes it. How could it ever rise to reality unless reality says, yeah, you're fucking real? Where else would it be crowned with reality? How could it seem so real unless reality was seeing it that way? How could it? We say in recovery, false evidence appears real. The importance of that statement is to who? To what? To what is that false evidence appearing real to? To the non-existent thing, to the selfing. The false evidence has the ability to appear real to the selfing all fucking day. When the non-existent thing is taken to be yourself, you're not seeing a damn thing. You're saddled with a form of looking called self-centeredness, which is totally blind to seeing. Totally blind. I don't care how much you try to look for it, you're never going to find that which is seen. Because what's looking is what you're looking for. At that moment, that's what you're looking for, is what you think is looking. Because it's not. It's seeing. There's only seeing. But when the seeing identifies with something that it's not, this fucking place seems as real can be. And when you give up the ghost, it seems ghostly. It seems like a paper tiger. It seems like it's fucking not held together with anything. How did it just suddenly turn that way? There's no thing to turn that way. We're giving it the meaning it has. Based on how we see it, not how it is. Its whole existence is based on how we see it. So what is prior to the presupposing of non-existent thing? The existing no thing is not presupposing a non-existent thing. The mental state presupposes it, yes? And then our life starts after that fact. And after that, it's going to look like a fact. But prior to it, it ain't a fact. Yeah. That thing we talked about today, the pause, that's us showing up in our own life. The pause, like they say in Zen, you'll see your original face, which isn't a face at all. It's that space, that pregnant, fucking juiced up, seemingly timeless moment, we call it a pause. That's us showing up in our own life, finally. And of course, the mental state claims it as an experience it has. That's what it does. I had a pause today. Let me tell you about the pause. It was 5 minutes. Let me see the biggest pause you've had. All right, here's my pause mantle. I had 3. I beat you. I caught this at this meeting this morning in Toronto. 5-minute mother. Look at that fucker. 5 minutes. It's not like that. It's the absence of you completely. And your absence is totally, completely so all the time. Literally. It just doesn't seem to be. You're getting a true glimpse of what's going on. Absolutely nothing, in a way. If you keep ping-ponging back and forth, one of those times you're going to recognize, hey, I'm that, that which I can't describe or understand or know. Hey, you land here, and then your takeoffs are put off. You don't take off. And then you realize what takes off isn't you anyway. That you can never move away or get closer to this. It's totally, how could everywhere hide out in everywhere? That's everywhere. Yeah. The mental state makes itself a special somewhere to hide the whole incredibly immersive reality of everywhereness. It's like the fish getting together other fish, starting based on the premise that they're all dry, and let's see how we can get wet. while they're totally immersed in water all fucking day. They don't even know they're wet because they're always wet. That's what it's like. And then we think an experience is going to do it. But an experience is like a pale taste of what's so. It may leave a little taste in your mouth, but the mental state will claim it and conceptualize it away. And every time you hear a message, if you are that which is hearing it, that hearing it will neuter it. So fast, you won't even know. Supposedly they say that selfing gets produced in like 500th of a second. You show me any process in this world that can beat that. So what happens? You do something. You're hoping that doing will undo all that shit you thought you did. But you know what? While the doing is going on to undo it, it's reinforcing it. Because you're doing it as the non-existent thing, trying to get relief for the non-existent thing. What does that do? It just reinforces the non-existent thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It constantly gets frequent for flyer miles every fucking trip you go off. Even trips to where it isn't, that's a fucking bonus miles. Bonus miles, you know. Bonus miles, constantly, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Just, yeah, keep on searching, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Self can't get out of self. As a great Zen master said, Huang Po, you cannot use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. Let that hit you a little. You cannot use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. You cannot use big M mind to seek big M mind. You can't use light to seek light. Why is that so? Why? It's not cryptic. It's a description. Yeah. If the Buddha, without knowing it, is seeking for the Buddha, the seeking for the Buddha will be used by the mental state to reinforce the idea that it's not the Buddha. Because who the hell, what Buddha would seek the Buddha if it knew it was Buddha? Exactly. Yeah? So it's the same thing with mind. Mind gets hidden by the activity of looking for it. You think it's being uncovered, it's being hidden by all your actions. All those actions are being claimed by the mental state. And it can morph it in the false image on your reflective screen, which is the mind's quality here. You know, the false mirror, it will have black leather jacket and tats and you know, tracks, or it'll have yoga clothes with a loving gaze. It can appear in a myriad form of apparitions, yeah? And some of them are more convincing than others. To what? To the mind. To me, oh, it's much more noble to be a meditator than it is to be a drug addict. But the same thing is being mind on both events. The meditation's implying the meditator, the shooting drugs is implying the addict. It's the same self. It's the same selfing. One's easier in a way to live with, but it's like the old story of the iron and the gold chains. You're still chained, and then the iron's a little colder, and you'd rather not have that, but hey, it's like, you know, moving to a hill in hell, and now it's 1 degree cooler. Fuck, great. And you got maybe a better view, but you're still in fucking hell. I don't know about you. If you could sense freedom, you would not tolerate some of the shit that happens. You would lose a flavor for it, or you wouldn't say, enough is enough. I mean, we can adapt, but what are we adapting to, you know? Haven't we been displaced enough? When you were a kid, when you were playing, were you worried about, did you worry about will you be playing next week? Did you? I never did. Time hadn't set up yet. You had no idea of time. So when you were playing, you were totally playing. I didn't go home and, hey, Mom, come in my room for a second. Can we go over my playing today? I want to compare it to Wayne's. I thought he was having more fun than I was. What do you think, Mom? No, none of that was going on. I was just playing. Yes, I wasn't walking around my house thinking my room was too small or my mother was ugly. I just loved her. Yes, all of that was in place. And therefore, you weren't looking to get out of yourself because you weren't trying to get out of any moment because you hadn't entertained the insane idea you could be out of a moment. You know, so you weren't trying to get in. That whole cottage industry of trying to get into the moment is totally based on an incredible fallacy that you could be out of a moment. We have never not been in every moment we've ever been in. And there's no, how more can you, who's telling you you're more in the moment? Who's the gauge of that? Is it like, you know, like putting something into a pot with water? All right, it's almost 3/4 immersed. Who says who's more in, you know what I mean? Is it a look you have to have? You have to have the gear to look, oh, that person, I know he's in the moment. Look at that loving gaze. Look at that. He's so calm and he's a very nice monotone. That's fucking nothing. You cannot be out of a moment. It's as simple as that. Why try to get in if you can't be out? And the same thing with selfing. We're trying to get out of ourselves all fucking day. I'm telling you, we're trying to get out of that which we're not in. We're not in it. You will hear thoughts. You don't have to listen to thoughts. There can be an abstinence. Abstinence is like a state. Abstinence isn't from everything. Abstinence is its own state. There's a peace in abstinence. Yeah. Where the thoughts are there doing their thing, but the engagement has downsized greatly. And then you're resting when that's enticing you to get agitated, basically. Yeah? Because when the mental state agitates bigger mind, the mind can't get a clear reflection. It's like where I used to surf, when I used to come down and it was a lagoon before the beach, and I look at the lagoon and see if there was any wind on it, because it would mean the waves, how the waves would be, like a preview. And so the days that the wind was on it, all you saw was the agitation of the surface. Yeah? And then when it was calm, you would see it reflecting all the trees and the clouds and everything like that. It was the same water. It never lost its reflective ability, but it wasn't reflecting anything when it's agitated. But when it was calm, it could reflect the sky, anything that was there. It would, the birds, the planes, everything. Yeah. The next day, agitated, none of that. Even though it was available, it wasn't seemingly happening. The mental state's invitation is to enter agitation. The mental state, if you look at Buddhism, when he talks about the Four Noble Truths, he talks about what's happening here, suffering, right? Or a malaise, a dissatisfaction, irritability, restlessness, as we talk about in recovery. But like a malaise, a dissatisfaction. You can't put your finger on it, but there's something not right most of the time. And if you don't think that's so, usually the activity of seeking is demonstrating its so-ness, yeah? If everything was fine, why would we be looking to get out of it all the time, yeah? So this thing, so there, what was I saying just then? Oh, the agitation. Oh, so the agitation, so, and then it says, all right, so desire is the root of the suffering, yeah? So desire. So let's bring it down, this is how I see it. Not the, I won't say original, but the primary desire is the mental state's desire to be a self, yeah? It wants to be something. It doesn't want, it wants to be something, yeah? So it's always in this desire to be what it can't be. You cannot be a self. You cannot be a long-lasting, independent, separate entity. You're much more than that. So the desire to become is constantly being thwarted. And if you've ever had a desire that's thwarted, you usually buy ice cream or something else, there's more agitation. It promotes more agitation. So this desire to be can never complete its mission, so it's constantly agitated. And then it presupposes it's something it doesn't want to be. So it has a desire to become and it has a desire to unbecome. And they're just going on like a slinky all day. And it's like electromagnetism. They feed, the one movement feeds the other movement. I'm a loser, I don't want to be that. You know, I want to be a winner. Oh no, desire to become, desire to unbecome. Oh no. There's never a culmination, never a crescendo. All it is agitation. Agitation begetting agitation. So let's say you run into some peace, and then peace becomes an object of worry. You're wondering when the peace is going to leave. When am I going to fuck it up, right? Isn't it the case? So the agitation doesn't respond to peace, it gets agitated about it, yeah? It doesn't respond to enlightenment, it uses it to drive itself even more crazy. Everything that you think would be the boat that would take the other shore is really a paddle to keep on stirring the fucking agitated pot. Basically, as soon as the mental state claims it, it will use it to drive you crazy. Yes? That's what it does. If you start seeing it, and how does it do it? It does it very simply, but it repeats it constantly. Everything it comes in contact with, its bridge is my, the word my. So there's seeing, then it becomes my seeing. As soon as it's claimed to be my seeing, that turns into a form of looking called self-centeredness. Now that hides the whole seeing. Hearing's happening. Now I'm the hearer, and then there's the heard. Yes. Feeling, I'm the feeler, and there's the felt. Now there's tons of things that are felt, but there's only one feeler of them all. This is the constant repetition of the imaginary pointing to the seeming someone all freaking day. This is what the mental state does. It uses everything as a sign to point to the imaginary phantom. And if you fall for it, you picture yourself as a body. That's what happens. You picture yourself as a body, the self it's got its beachhead, and now it just has World War I's and twos and threes and fours and fives. And sometimes it's the German, sometimes it's the American, just does its thing. Yes, it has its thing. It's neutered everything that could really intervene on its little games. Consciousness, the availability of presence at all times. That's done because now it's you wanting to be present. You saying you're conscious. Now it's infrequent, it becomes a goal, maybe a job, maybe a noble calling that you go off to find, and you're never gonna fucking find it, because whatever you find, agitation will get stirred, and you'll look for a turbocharged Buddhism. Or a Buddhism that has tantric yoga and then, foot massages and vegan food. Or like a 3-month retreat with some therapy, some silence, some that. Yes, add on like a huge smorgasbord, because nothing can tame the fucking wild beast. There is no peace. There is no peace. As Jesus says, we're in this world, but not of this world. Peace is not in here, it's of. Yeah? Peace comes through us to this place. We do not find peace here. Yeah? Any peaceful place you've ever been, you were there. The peace wasn't there, you were there. That event teased some peace out of your ass, but it was yours. It's we're the peace bringers, yes? There isn't any Serenity Hill that everyone feels serene when they go up. Some people are super pissed when they're up on Serenity Hill. Obviously it's not the hill, is it? But anytime you're at peace, you were there, right? I can't believe, it's like a dog not recognizing its own shit. It's like, who's dropping these loads all around me? It's you, dog. You're the fucking shitter. Oh, what? Yeah. Just look at one little specimen. Hey, it's points. Yeah. I mean, everything seems to happen when you're there. It's gotta, it's just gotta trigger something, I hope, sometime. Why just take things at face value? That's what I call entertaining. Let something in and let the mind fucking go off. Why put conceptual constraints on it? It's like having a marathon runner in a closet. It wants to run. Open the fucking door, let it go and see. See what happens. See what mind, the tiniest little nugget that's introduced to mind can create a very long-lasting avalanche. The mind's ability to entertain is unbelievable. We're busily entertaining shit all day. We're like miracle workers, really. Many of us right now are making shit out of nothing. We are. We're thinking about there's thoughts about next week, and we're believing them, and therefore the feeling of next week happens now. We feel like we're going to get fucked next week, and then you feel like you're fucked now. Yet you're not responding to what's happening here, you're reacting to what's not happening. Most of us are seemingly out to lunch all day. Seriously, if on the basic dog shit level of being here, Are you responding to this, or are you reacting to something that's not happening? And maybe you think it was just a rare occurrence, but then if you look at it, you'll see a lot of the time, yesterday and tomorrow has more weight than now. Much more weight, much more emphasis, much more interest. Wouldn't that send off an alarm? You know, like bang, bang, you know what I mean? I'd love to see, I was sharing it yesterday, like if you were a kid and you could come here and see seemingly yourself as an adult, you would think you're in an insane asylum. You know, the kid was playing, wonder and awe, all that, and now you're totally possessed by what's not happening. What the fuck happened to Paul? A mental development happened, yeah? The sense of selfing was proposed and repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated, and we pictured it. Yeah. Now it just goes like this, and we picture it. And that's the new starting point, and for some of us it doesn't work. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So we're trying to look for some information or something to maybe, you know, hey, is it possible the horse could be in front of the cart? Yes, it is, you know. And what would that be like? Well, blue would be appearing as blue, and red would be red, and you'd probably lose all questions of metaphysics, and you just, hey, where are my keys or something, you know? It would be, the obviousness of it would just come over you, and there would be a freedom from the need to be liberated, because what needs to be liberated isn't us. The selfing needs to be liberated, but it wants to be liberated as a self, and the liberation is from a self. It's not included in the package deal of freedom, yeah? It wants to get this message. It does, seemingly. It'll say it does, and that's the way that's why the message is seemingly never gotten, because you can't get this message, you are it. This is just a humble, crude, like, whispering to that which is, yeah? So yes, everything is going over your head, because it's not pointed to you, yeah? Because once the mind, this happened to me in recovery, it was like the 10th year or 11th year of recovery, something happened in my head, and I saw things anew. So I was looking at the big book of AA, and they had a statement in it, and I had been leading fourth step workshops for years, and always on this one chapter called How It Works. It's a very apt description, how it works. So I read it, which I had read tons of times again, but I saw all new meaning in it, and it went like this. He said, being convinced, which means to believe with certainty, that self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. Yeah, so we're the us, yeah? And then there's self. And somehow, in a lot of different ways, self has somehow seemingly defeated us, yeah? Being convinced of that. All right, if we are, we're now going to look at some of self's common manifestations. And so we go to resentment, which is the number one offender. It kills more alcoholics than anything else, getting resentful at others, yeah, and themselves. All right, resentment. Then we go to fear also. So if you follow the line of reason, it says the fear and resentment is an expression or a manifestation of self. They're not yours. Then every time anyone talks about fear, they talk about my fear, my resentments, my this, my that. That's the act of being identified as what you're not. The us has forgotten the us and takes itself to be the self, and that's how self defeats us in various ways, is through identification as what we're not. That's its game board. Yeah? It'll defeat you with a solution, it'll defeat you with a problem. Whatever it comes in contact with, it will use to reinforce, presuppose, infer, imply that you're a long-lasting, independent, separate entity. That's it. The freedom is prior, not after. No fucking way is it after. No fucking way. It's prior. From before, from after, we need a solution. But if you find a solution that's actually so, it's prior to the problem. And from prior to the problem, there is no problem. There's an activity. Yeah? It's an activity. that needs your compliance here to believe that you're here. To believe that you're not this awareness, not this sense of space, not this sense of beingness, you know, not confined in time, that you're not that and you're this. You're a thing that lives under the auspices of time, which is really a drag, isn't it? Really. I mean, we do our best we can, and maybe we hit the crescendo at 9:02, and we feel fucking great for once, but 9:03 shows up. By 11 o'clock, you could be in a deep depression. It's like nothing's stable here. It's like trying to line up a bunch of blocks in a fucking hurricane wind, you know? We get them all right, and we got to go back to work. Or, you know, the girlfriend's upset you didn't do the dishes. Or, you got a bad news, you have a cold. You know? But the prior to all the conditions that we seem to so need to manage, there's a freedom. Yeah, there's a freedom. From here, there is no problem. It's an activity that can seem to be a problem or not to itself, but to us. We're the final arbiter in the deal. Nothing is being done to us. Nothing is fucking being imposed on us. We are the dreaming of this dream. We forget that we're dreaming. In that state of forgetfulness, we give everything we dreamt, thoughts, feelings, the power to affect us as the dreamt. That's the diagnosis. For some reason, these things, and then the clarity of the innate seeing becomes obvious. Yeah, your sense of presence, obviously. And this little rebuttal to all the years and years of yapping can erase 30 cases where you are convicted, free and annulled, just by one sense of that which is prior releases all the holdings of what's after. And all the holdings of what's after can never bind this, that which is prior. Never, never, you know. Look at it as an example of the sky. Look at a sky. Tons of shit happens in the sky, but none of it affects the sky. Tons of planes have flown through the sky. Not once did any of those planes call the tower and said, I ran into a big chunk of sky. They haven't. Birds take a shit, it doesn't land on the sky, it lands on our cars, yeah. 4th of July explosions, you could have 365 days of 4th of July explosions, they will not, more isn't gonna rip the sky open, just as less didn't, yes? So that's like big M mind, that's what our nature is like. Our nature is sky-like, yeah? Sky-like. We are spacious, we are empty, there's brilliance, yeah? Tons of things are appearing in that, yet what appears in it has no effect in what it's appearing in. That's the immunity of our inherent condition. That's what is given up by the identification with a false condition. Yeah? At that point, thoughts can attack us. Like they say in the Course, your attack thoughts are attacking your invulnerability. But most of the time, we don't think we're invulnerable. Well, you can never think you're invulnerable, either you are or you're not, yes? So therefore, the attack thoughts seem to have an object to attack, you. And don't they? We heard a guy share today a beautiful example of having everything right for the breakfast, but the thoughts just drove him fucking crazy from the get-go. Everything was totally wrong in the mental landscape, where everything looked totally okay here, and the mental landscape usually wins out, especially when the identification of self is in place. The mental landscape will always eclipse what's happening. It will always become the biggest influence in what's happening. What's not happening will leave the biggest impression on what's happening when we're identified as a self. It's mind-boggling. It could only happen because we are reality, yeah? And if we believe something to be so, it's going to sure seem to be so. When I heard satsang first time, I didn't even hear the lady. She was East European and was outside. She talked very low. I couldn't hear her at all. But it didn't matter. It was just the space was the appropriate thing. And then there was like an unspoken yes happened, you know. I just knew before knowing, you know, just something new. And then I read some more books, and I listened to some more people. Went to India to see where Ramesh Ramana Maharshi lived, because I liked his books. And what was put in, the mind entertained, and the entertaining, then all of these tied up flags unfurled, yeah? All of these fucking colors started streaming, you know? Everything that had been frozen into sort of like a dead landscape was melted, and then it was started to happen, you know? And I saw everything is happening, all happening, no nouns at all, just happening, yeah? And that's why we miss it. We're trying to look for a thing when we're just seeing. We are seeing. We're not a seer or seeing, we're seeing. We're hearing. That's what we are. We are that event. This event that is the base of all other events, we're that event of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. And that's that, you know? Mental state constantly keeps offering its invitation to get into its little auditorium, and usually you will buy a ticket over and over again because the movie's about you, really. I swear to God, you wouldn't go see a movie of Paul unless you were called Paul, right? No Steves are gonna go see Paul's movie because they're Steve. They're waiting for Steve's movies to come out, yeah? That's the whole enticement. In Buddhism, they call it the cherishing of self. The mental state loves what it's making. That's fine, but it's gone overboard to the point where it seems to have eclipsed what we are, in a sense, by this constant application of what we're not, as the doer, the haver, the thinker, the feeler, all like that. It's like a heist that you don't usually ever see. You're the product of. You don't even know the heist has happened. You're looking, who's fucking trying to fuck with me? You've already been robbed. You've already been robbed, bro. The jewels are gone. Your life isn't as bright as it used to be. Where's the wonder and awe? How could that all become so infrequent, you know? You know, you go to the beach with a Labrador, you throw that ball once, it's the happiest fucking thing you ever saw. 800 times, it's the happiest fucking thing you ever saw. That's why they built that little thing, because people's arms were probably getting shoulder operations. The Labrador is not gonna, you know, it's just fucking happy. Or, you know, a little baby walks in here and you go, ooh, ooh, the baby, do it 20 times, ooh. Us, you know, we see a beautiful sunrise, oh, I've seen them. I gotta get to coffee, you know, get that fuck. What? You feel like you're like on one of those moving sidewalks at the airport. You like to stop. I'm sure you just keep this momentum, time your vision. But does your seeing ever hurt? Does your seeing get tired? That awareness, does light get tired of being light? Does awareness get tired of being awareness? Like it's doing it? Like it's, I'm going to do an awareness marathon as awareness, you know? It doesn't go to a gym to work out, does it? You wake up, and, you know, the movie's there. As soon as you're, yeah, and then the whole day, tons of things happen, but all they're happening to is you, yeah? You're the only thing that doesn't come and go. That was time. Did it demonstrate any thought or effort? Did you have to be conscious today? Did you have to work on it? Then why would you think you could get back there by thought and effort? It has nothing to do with the innate awareness, effort and thought. Nothing. It's obviously on in spite of us. Literally, yeah? If you start seeing what you're not, you'll find out what you are. It's inevitably going to have to seep through no matter how thick of paint you've used to cover the canvas, this is going to leak out from behind the canvas through the paint. It's not another new application of another fucking layer of paint, you know? It's a coming, bleeding through You show up in your own life. And then see what happens, you know. It may move you to do something, it may move you not to do something. There's no rote path. This is not a path to illumination. You and I are illuminating any path we're on. We're the light. We find things here that tease it out of us, but that thing we find does not inject us with light. It teases the light out of us. Yes? Because we're stingy motherfuckers, is selfing. It wants it all to be turned on itself, all about it. Yet you do something you love and it teases it out, and you get into that zone where there was no selfing, no thought, just like surfing. When I was surfing, there was no thoughts about I'm surfing or about will I be surfing next week, because it's too engaging. Yeah, you got a lot of variables and you can die out there. So you got to be sort of awake to being in the water. Yeah, and in that space, everyone loves that space. Yeah, and then you come out of the water. As you're coming out of the water, the mental state arises, says, "I hope someone saw me catch that big wave." That's the fucking thing. That's it in a nutshell. That's what it is. It's life's happening or life's happening to you. One's living, one's an interpretation of living. One neuters the living, one emphasizes the living. Yeah, it's up to us in a sense, not as a choice, but just as a possibility. See it, because in self-centeredness, it has choked the living fucking life out of possibilities. That's what self-centeredness does, because it's based in time. So okayness gets to be thrust into I will be okay, or I was once okay. It's never fucking immediate, yeah? The possibilities are so severely limited by self-centeredness. You get to see such a small piece of the atmosphere. So few stars appear in it, and they're all drenched in time. I could get there, maybe one day. No, this is a whole different possibility. This is, the aperture will open up, and more will be revealed, yes? There's still the same seeing, but there'll be more space to see in, yeah? The space is what's become claustrophobic. The seeing hasn't been infected at all. It's just been downsized into a very small playground. Yeah? It opens up and the seeing expands with the expansion. Yeah? And that provokes something. Find out that sense-felt presence, or just an onness that nothing perceives, you know? You finally arrive at which you've never left. And you can call it home, you know, you can call it. Nothing is even the best. Just, you know, you're so busy being it, you're not trying to study it, you're not trying to fucking categorize it, you're just fucking being it, yeah? And in my great grace in the seed assignment, I get used, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful job to have in this jobless state, yeah? So, we're gonna take a break, right, and then come back, yes? And well, any questions now? Very similar description earlier. It's talking about it, describing. They use the word ego a lot in the course, but to me, the ego, when people speak about ego, there's usually a sense that there's someone who had the ego or loses the ego. That to me is the selfing, is the feeling of the one who has the ego. Selfing. So to me, ego is like an objectification of the mental process about itself, yeah. That's how I feel. So, but I'll wait for us. All right, so I'm going to read a little bit out of a book, and we'll just riff on it. I think I hit the nail in enough, but I need to pound it a little more today, yeah? What do you think? A couple more hits? Yeah, I do. So it goes like this. Yet we have heard a very similar description earlier, meaning a description of the selfing, so to speak, yes? But it was not of you, see? So when we're describing the selfing and all this stuff about the non-existent thing, the point isn't to go, oh, he's describing me to a T. It doesn't stop there. Yes, it can goes to, he's describing me as you know, as T, and I'm not that. Yeah. You ever hear of the Enneagram? You ever heard of that? So I once did an Enneagram workshop for 2 days with these two masters, whatever. And so they were doing their thing, and in the Enneagram, it's an old mechanism to describe really what we're not, yeah? And so what they did is they break, it's sort of like we're all Fords, let's say. And in their view, there was, of course they didn't have Fords back then, it's ancient, you know, Islam, but there's all this basic 4 Ford models, yeah? 9 of them. And so all of us fall under 9 categories. And then each category has 2 subdivisions that mixes up some different flavors. So there's 27 basic character or personality models that all humans are demonstrating. Yeah, it's a very good teaching so that when you learn, and so they give them numbers, 1 through 9. So after at one of these seminars, and then the teacher may even do a little example of you, and he'll say or she'll say, well, you're a 7 with a 6 sexuality and a 3 something. So at the break, everyone rushes out and they go, I'm a 7. And then the others, I'm a 4 with a 6 and a 2. And everyone now has something more to identify as. When the real point is yes, you feel like you drive like that, you think you smell like a Ford, you think you turn like a Ford, and because of just that, you're not a Ford. Yeah? So it's the identification doesn't stop at the identification. The identification stops at negating the identification. So it's not like you have something new to identify as. I'm a 7 or a 4 or an Aquarian or a Scorpio or a water dragon in Chinese horoscope or a horse. No, all those things are descriptions of what we're not. And when you read something that's from an ancient practice and it sounds quite like you, hopefully it will lead to the idea, how could they know me from like the 1200s? Or they don't know you, they know a you that you're taking yourself to be. Yeah? Because there's only so many models of a yous, and a lot of these people have been studying for a long, long time, and they pretty much categorized all the models. There's no special model coming out. Yeah? Every model has been categorized and given some kind of description, and the point is for the thing that isn't a car, that thinks it's a car, to read what it's like to be a car, and finally take it to, I'm not a car. You know what I mean? Because while you're a car and you're in denial of being a car, you're more a car than ever. But if you get to realize and accept that you're a car, that's the day that you may not be one. Yes, see how it works? This is how the mind works. It's good to check out how mind works because it's working on you quite a lot. So you might as well start figuring out its little movements so that you can recognize the dance instead of recognizing the dance as the flaw for it. You know what I mean? So here we go. Yet we have heard a very similar description earlier, but it was not of you. See, what we're describing all day here is not of us. Serious. What we're intimating, space and stuff like that, that would say more of us. But most of the descriptions we're doing today are not of us. That's the point of describing it. So that you and I can identify and then take it to the next step. And therefore, just like when I came into AA, I was there, came in with, I didn't know it, but a thick shell of terminal uniqueness. I thought no one thought like I did, no one felt like I did, no one done the terrible things I'd done. And after a few months at these meetings, people share their thoughts, their feelings, and their reactions to life. And I could only come to 2 conclusions. How did these people get my thoughts? Or they're not my thoughts, which was hallelujah. Because when they weren't my thoughts, a certain possibility of okayness with the thoughts came that were not coming when they were mine. When they were mine, I didn't want them. I didn't want them to be the way they were. I wanted them to change. When they were just thoughts, I could give them some space, and therefore I saw myself, because we're space, really. Really, that's what we are. All right, so here. But still this strange idea, which it does not accurately describe, which it does accurately describe, you think is you. See? So, this is what teaching is. You describe what you're not, and of course the people will keep identifying with that, and then you point out to them with repetition, and I hope with some grace and some compassion, which I'm sometimes not showing, but there is a deep compassion. You point out to them, it's not you, yes? So, it's described to a T, and now the description is, oh, he knows exactly who I am. No, I know exactly what you're not. You see? I know exactly what you're not. I know exactly what you're not. I do not know exactly who you are or what you are, because that's to be found out. Yeah? Yeah. But still this strange idea, like being a non-existent thing, it's a very strange idea. You have to admit it, really. You have to admit that to think that you stop here, you know what I mean? And that you're doing this, that shows no thought or effort, like seeing, hearing, feeling, is a really fucking strange idea. It's a really strange idea that we believe we can be out of a moment. It is. You know, really, it's incredible. Or that yesterday and tomorrow is more important than now. That's a very strange idea. No kid has it, you know. They don't. We grew up and now it's like the norm, you know. And we teach our kids. Squash that imagination. You gotta fucking get ready for those tests. What tests? How can I be tested as a kid? I'm kidding. I'm a kid. There's no test for being a kid. But you won't be a kid for long. Oh, fuck, thanks for rating on my grade, Dad. Just because you can't enjoy it, let me enjoy it. Yeah. But still this strange idea, which it does accurately describe, you think is you. See, you think is you. Once you think it's you, then you'll feel like it's you. Then you'll sense it's you. But the thinking is the seed. The thinking is it. Yeah. So, this you think is you. Reason would tell you that the world you see through eyes that are not yours must make no sense to you. Yeah. This way of looking, called self-centeredness, yes? This way of looking is a form of blindness to what's seen. We that are seeing are blind to that when we're seemingly looking. Yeah? When we're looking in a very manufactured way, which is everything is referred back to us. It's everything that we see gets referred back to the seer of it. This is blindness to what's happening. It's blindness to what you want to call spirit, totally blind to it, yeah? So when we're using this form of looking to find what we are, we're never going to find what we are, because as St. Francis says, what's looking, right then and there, is what you're looking for. Just not how you're looking, yeah? Reason would tell you that the world you see through eyes that are not yours must make no sense to you. To whom would seeing such as this send back its messages? So, who is it that's getting these messages? Yeah? These messages, perceptions, thoughts, takes, opinions about what's happening here, they're going back to the non-existent thing. They are what informs and enlivens the non-existent thing. You become the center of the universe. You is what you're not. Yeah? Where the center of the universe isn't locatable, you suddenly become the center of the universe. Because everything that goes out comes back to this. Everything that's felt is felt by this. Everything that's thought is thought by this. Everything that's done is done by this. Yeah? The non-existent thing is like a vacuum cleaner that has sucked everything up, and then takes all that up, and it forms a fucking little image of itself. It has to keep sucking everything up to get this sort of image of itself. If there's any pause or any moment when that activity isn't being full on, it will fall apart like anything always would fall apart. That's not so. And it falls apart tons of times, and then it just overrides that fact and tells a story about it. And it keeps on keeping on. It's like when you take mercury out of a thermometer and you smash it, the mercury goes everywhere and then it suddenly goes back to itself. That's what selfing is like. Yeah? You try to smash it into the four winds, it sucks back up and fucking formulates itself again. So here. To whom would seeing such as this send back its messages? Surely not you, whose sight is wholly independent of the eyes that look upon the world. Seeing is not vision. We're not talking about vision. Seeing is awareness. Yes? Seeing is seeing more. This seeing is seeing more than the vision is seeing at any time. To whom would seeing such as this send back its messages? Surely not you, whose light is wholly dependent, whose sight is wholly independent of the eyes that look upon the world. If this is not your vision, what can it show to you? It's the same old, same old, doesn't it? The brain cannot interpret what your vision sees. It interprets what the seeing eye sees, and it makes it all about itself, the you, the non-existent you. Yeah? The brain this is the best part right here. The brain cannot interpret what your vision sees. This you would understand. Please. The brain interprets to the body of which it is a part. So this brain, through the perceptions, through the thoughts, through everything that it sort of seems to use to cognize this place, that interpretation of the brain is directed to the body. The brain is taking you as a body. So everything it collates, everything it goes over, everything it thinks about, all of it is always brought to the one constant that it assumes to be so, which is the non-existent thing. The brain interprets to the body. It does not interpret to spirit. It does not interpret to awareness. It's not interpreting to beingness. It's interpreting to the body. Yeah? Now it may say the body can be aware, the body can reach beingness, the body can get this and that, but everything is going to be framed by the body. Even spirituality, listen to people share about spirituality. It sounds like a body. They say, I've started a spiritual journey. What goes on a journey? Does spirit go on a journey? Where's spirit going to journey to? A body goes on a journey. I was raised to the heights of spirituality. What gets raised? Spirit, where's low? Where is spirit low and then gets raised? A body does. So even the idea of getting back to what we are is framed as a body. The whole idea of getting back is the body. Because we believe we're somewhere that we have to leave from to get back to. That's not so. We haven't left. It only feels like you've left if you're identified as the body. When you see you're not a body, it's absurd to entertain any possibility that you ever left what always is. It's unbelievably obvious that nothing's happened here. Right. If this is not your vision, what can it show to you? The brain cannot interpret what your vision sees. This you would understand. The brain interprets to the body of which it is a part. But what it says you cannot understand, yet you have listened to it, and long and hard you tried to understand its messages. You have not realized it is impossible to understand what fails entirely to reach you. The mental interpretation is not reaching to the innermost. It's making absolutely no sense to your spirit or to spirit. Yeah? So then he goes, for you have listened to what can never communicate at all. Think then what happens, denying what you are and firm in faith that you are something else. So selfing is basically denying what you are, yeah, and having faith in what you're not. And that's the situation. Yeah? So Denying what you are and firm in faith that you are something else. This something else that you have made to be yourself becomes your sight. You see from here, and that's a form of looking. It's seeing, as St. Francis says, what's looking is what you're looking for, but it's actually been bastardized into a form of looking, and especially when that form of looking is turned to find what's seeing, it's not, you're going to be blind to the seeing, because exactly at that moment you are what's looking. You are that looking. Yet it must be the something else that sees and as not you, explains its sight to you. Doesn't it sound like your head's talking to you quite a lot? I remember when I was, I had this sort of event in Bali where selfing was stopped, let's say, and it went on for a while, and I was sitting in a very blissful, whatever, non-state. And then I heard a voice. It wasn't even my voice. It sounded like it was far away. It was like behind a rock, yeah? And it was talking to me, lowly. And then it seemed to move closer because the volume went up. And it was talking to me. And then there was a point where it suddenly switched and it was talking as me. And then the seeming epiphany started to end. The phenomena continued for hours, but it became an event, an experience that the selfing had, yeah, which neutered the whole fucking thing. I wore my epiphany mantle, and I had a big one. Fucking look at the size of this, and it was in Bali under a waterfall, and I had witnesses. Fuck, you can't beat that. I caught the big bass. I caught it at the lake. You know what I mean? But the funny thing is, when I had epiphanies, I realized they all seemed to end when a thought arose, which is, I'm having an epiphany. As soon as I seemed to show up to have the epiphany, there went the epiphany. It happened more than once, so I figured something's going on here. As soon as I have it, it's gone. And when I'm really in it, it's not that thing that has it is gone. Yeah. So here we go. Yet if your eyes are closed, oh, this is great. Your vision would, of course, your vision would, of course, render this quite unnecessary. This whole fucking interpretation, yeah? You just see these things as they seemingly are, and you'd be a lot more allowable to have things be as they are, yeah? You wouldn't be in so much argument with everything, and things would just be, it's like we talk in recovery, you'd be in much more of an accepting state, yeah? Not by effort, just by as a result of seeing, yeah? Seeing. So it says here, and you have called upon this thing to lead you, meaning the selfing, asking it to explain to you the world it sees. You have no reason not to listen, nor to suspect that what it tells you is not true. Reason would tell you it cannot be true because you do not understand it. God has no secrets. He does not lead you through a world of misery, waiting to tell you at the journey's end why he did this to you. Yeah. This is just another way. Ramana says it simply, the presupposing of a non-existent thing and then wanting to get salvation for that non-existent thing. All of these are the same statement. They're attempting to sort of make possible something that's completely so, which is there is a space prior to the activities, that you do not start after an activity. Your life doesn't start with a thought occurred to me. Yeah. You are prior to any occurrence. You are that which is the space that things occur in. That, without saying anything, has the biggest say of all. That space has the biggest say of all in everything here, and it never says a damn fucking thing. Its silence is its conviction, yeah? And in resting in there, things that you would have attempted to try to learn and try to be diligent about, vigilant, and work hard and try to understand, will come in a different manner. It won't be something you know, it'll be what you are. Yeah? You'll be being it. And then slowly or quickly, you'll recognize It's always being it. And maybe sometimes you'll start thinking, oh, that's still the mental selfing and this is that. But after a while, you see even the selfing is it. Yeah? That it's totally inclusive. There's nothing right or wrong with what's going on other than what we make it seem to be. Yeah? Yeah. So there's an inclusiveness, and it's a win-win. It's not a win-lose. It's a win-win. And this is done with no thought or effort. It's just, you find out about it. Like Jesus says, you'll know the tree by its fruits. You can't know the tree, but you can know the tree by its fruits. So you'll intimate by watching your life turn into traveling lighter, and in that lightness it will intimate light. Yeah? In that spaciousness it will intimate spaciousness. In that sense of onness, that verbing, it'll intimate being. Yeah? So you'll get to, in a sense, mimic a knowing of yourself by finding out about it. Yeah? By the living of it, by the expressing of it, by the being of it, you'll know it. You'll know the tree by its fruits. That's the only way you can know what you are, if you are that. You can see its expressions. Yeah? And then it's not located just in this little fucking stage, it's everyone. Then you start seeing the choreography of things, and then the vignettes, and these lovely little guest appearances of no thing into work situations. It's really freaking mind-boggling. You have eyes to see and ears to hear. You know, you pick up the sound of all sounds. You hear the frequency of what they call the celestial spheres. You start hearing something that's more constant than your breath vibrating. It's more constant than your heartbeat. It's like the first sound of all sounds, and yet there's something behind that that's hearing it that's not, can never be heard. That's us. That's what we are. We are the seeing, the hearing, the feeling, the tasting, and touching. And if we had 30 senses, we'd be the seeing, the hearing, the feeling, and all of those. Not as a thing, but as the act. The seeing, the hearing, the feeling, the tasting, the touching. That's how you capture you. You have to have a fucking active camera. You won't capture yourself as a thing. It's not a thing. It's being. It's not a divine being. It's being divine, let's say. Yes? So you capture it. It's like people, you know, you think, all right, I'm going to go to the river, put this glass in the river. The River Starbuck, yes. Yeah, I don't like fishing at the River Starbuck, but hey, beggars can't be choosy. So you go and you put some in, and so now you got the river water, so you go home and say, hey, this is river water. But once you take the water out of the river, it loses the essence of the river, which is rivering, yes? It's stagnant now, it's not moving. You can't capture the river by knowing it, yeah? You can only know it by being it. You know, you jump in it, and then you know the river, yeah? So it's the being and knowing it neuters it. It's sort of like a forensic investigation. It's fucking dead on arrival. You've killed it by your observation. Because your observation is of things and of concepts and of right angles, and you can't miss the beauty of being. You know, you can't get it, you can't grab it, yes? What happens? For me, one of the best things was when there was like a nuclear explosion and the mental skyscrapers, all the skyscrapers got blown down. And then it was just verbing. Just verbing, no nouns to be found, just verbing, just blew it all down. And then I saw the falsehood of the mental logic, that when an action happens, it totally is convinced it implies there's an actor. Yeah? When there's a verb, there must be a noun, which isn't true. It's just verbing. There's just doing, there's just seeing, there's just hearing, there's just feeling. There's no doer, no seer, no hearer, no feeler. The mental landscape has skyscrapers. It has things. Constantly thing. You are like the fucking world towers, whatever. You're that everything seems to, all the verbs just refer to the noun. In this, it's just verbing. And the only way you know verbing is to be verbing. And you are being. So here in some Buddhism they talk about view and vision. So view would be an understanding, yeah? So like in some circles non-duality or Zen. And so they have an understanding. And views are helpful, but then there's the vision, yeah? Now an understanding is good, but it doesn't produce vision. But vision is what enlivens understanding, yeah? Our inherent condition is vision, yeah? We may not know that, so then an understanding can be helpful. So it may start pointing out the possibility that seems impossible to us just in the non-existent thing, that maybe there's something else going on, all right? So the understanding creates a nice floor for entertainment, but it cannot produce vision. But vision is what infuses understanding. Vision is our inherent condition, yeah, yeah. Your whole mind doesn't have to be engaged with what's available on Saturday. A large chunk of it can rest in the eternity. You know what I mean? So that the scouts, the interest and attention can go out, and instead of getting stopped at the billboard with your happy face on it, me as a body, will go back into its source, find completement there, completion, come back, and when it comes in, it will sprinkle a little of that infinity on you, yes? And you'll feel like the breath has truly circulated finally. There's the exhale, the inhale. Instead of hitting here, which many people think is in, this is out. The brain is out. It's a part of the body. This is out. This can be perceived. It's not perceiving. The brain is not perceiving. Yes? Something enlivens it to allow it to. So now it goes in, let's say, and that in is us. And it comes back out, deals with what has to be dealt with, but doesn't lose any of itself. Yeah, it just gets totally replenished here, goes out. You never lose interest. You just lose interest in things. Yeah? Do you get a quota or a certain amount of attention on Sunday night and with a warning? Don't fucking waste it. You can't get another shipment till Sunday night, no matter who you are. You know, have you ever run out of attention? It's not a thing, is this? Is it? There's no quantity to it. You can't weigh it. Interest and attention is an aspect of mind, not of the body. Yes? Let it go back to its fucking home. It's not meant to pick up messages descent in a non-existent thing from its misperceptions, descent in a non-existent thing, they go back out and bring more. It's meant to go. Let it go. Let it complete its mission. And that interest and attention, instead of enslaving you now to what's not happening, will enrich you now. It will enrich you. You'll be awake to being awake. And there is an inherent, I downplay it, but there's an inherent, it's a massive upgrade. Let's put it that way. You know, really. We talk about faith in AA a lot, you know, faith. To me, I see faith as a force of mind, big M mind, yes? Faith, as Jesus says, you know, you have faith the size of a mustard seed, it can move mountains. It's incredible. And when Jesus supposedly healed people, he never said he healed them. He says it's done according to your belief. Yes, it was always, yes, yeah. So in this idea of faith as a force of mind, faith is like neutral energy, and then coming into this place of polarities, yeah? How faith is going to manifest is going to be the vehicle it's put in. So many of us have been at the butt end of a large amount of faith put into the thought system. We have believed the thoughts to be true. Yeah? And we believed them and had faith in them so much that they overrode our conscious contact with what's happening, and we became denizens of what's not happening. Thoughts could not do that. Faith did. Yeah? A power of mind with the belief in those thoughts now can produce anxiety. That same faith put into the spirit or trusting something infinite will bring in ease and comfort into your own existence now. Yeah? They'll allow you to chill out without any evidence to be chilling out. You will chill out. That's faith. That's a force of mind. Do you want that to be directed by the mental state? Or do you want to be directed by that force? It's good to see what's happening, because that's the most beautiful quality we have, is awareness, yeah? Not awareness that's been compromised and claimed and owned and neutered, but the awareness of the rawness of priorness, yeah? Where it can see very clearly what is and what ain't, yeah? It doesn't go into deep discussions and debates. It's very clear. That's the essence of traveling lighter. That will stabilize what is stable. What is stable can stabilize here in this place of volatility. What's truly so can become the rock-solid foundation in what's not so. That's not from this place, it's from otherness, from what we are. We are the bringer of that stability. Yes? Faith in mind is the stability. It's amazing. I used to do these talks, yeah, for years in AA. And I did these things for 16 years, this Monday night workshop in San Francisco. As long as I was in the country, I would do it. And that was 16 years of Monday nights. There was a lot of Monday nights I had. Yeah, so I had a lot of different situations. Like my girlfriend broke up with me 5 minutes before the talk. I was waiting to hear if I had AIDS one time. I lost, I had no money, was feeling shitty, this and that, yeah? I walk into that meeting, and when I sat down, and I was willing to be the hose, the water came through every time. And while it was coming through, the most pressing issues were totally non-apparent. If I had a bum knee, the knee wasn't kneeing at all. If I had anything going on, sick, nothing. Everything would be overridden by that download, yes? How real could have that shit been? How real could a knee problem been if it could stop its effects immediately for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, only to kick up again when my attention went in another way? That stuff reveals something. When you see that something that seems so pressing, and then you get engaged in something else and it's like it wasn't ever so, that's an indication it has never been so. It's brought to light and to light by us. I had it 100% batting average. I didn't care what was going on. If I sat down there and I was willing to be used, in that time of being used, all the pressing issues were totally dismissed as if they were not so. Totally. I mean, I didn't feel any of it. And as soon as the talk would end, then they'd creep back. Oh, the knee. Usually actually started with my knee, my problem, my girl, and then, all right, then the old engagement would seem to happen. And that would seem as real could be. But it didn't seem as real as could be as it used to, because its absence revealed something. Its ability to be absent so quickly revealed a suspicion of its presence. Because if something seems so and then cannot seem so at all, you got to start questioning it. I would imagine, maybe not. I do. It just causes me curiosity. How could I was fucking bummed out by that all day? No, it's totally gone. And I'm bummed out. How could that happen? You see, you're rolling it. Yeah, all roads lead to Rome, and there's no Rome. That's the good news. Everything leads to us, and there is no us. That's the great news. If you're this urban renewal project will never be called off. You're always going to find fault. You are. You haven't done enough. You know, you should have sat longer on the pillow. You fucking should have signed up for the 4-month retreat, not the 2-month retreat. You should have done this, you should have done that. It's always going to find fault. But the freedom is when you realize it's not you. Yeah? Then the whole construction site gets closed. No more fucking money goes to it. It's okay. Acceptance reigns supreme, you know? This was never going to get a break until I saw it as not me. If I was, it was like that mental hen was just sitting on this fucking thing, hitting it all day, you know, all day. Not enough. You must get better. It was like a mental accountant up there, accruing value. Did I accrue enough value to have a break today? No. You must go out. You have to surf 2 hours. That guy's been in the water long. Okay, I'll get out. When do I get the break? No more. You know what I mean? It was like a ticket tape. You're doing badly. I've gotta have this. Got to be the best Saturday I ever had. Why? Because it's been demanded of me. That's slavery. How could you look at it anything else? How could you look at if you could? Everything could be great, and one thought could wipe the whole fucking scenario. That's some power that's been given over to that activity. The thought doesn't have the power to do it. Bring it back. Yes, you got it, eh? Yes. Just bring back. Like, to me, I've been talking pretty much to this for 2 years now, because there's no more steps to go over. Because that's the conception, in a sense, from being into interpretation, which is the presupposing of a non-existent thing. Yeah? The being is there, and then there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing, and then the being sort of goes along with it and now gets split into wasing and willing. Yeah? It loses its own sense. By now the being gets distributed into wasing and willing. It's like pulling it so far this way and that way. Yet the beauty of it is it never fucking happened. It can only seem to happen. And as soon as you see that, it won't be seeming to happen. Because you're the reason why it seems to happen, and you're the reason why it will seem not to happen. Any questions? Because I don't want to go on all the day. It's like beating a dead horse. You know? This is an invitation. You know, you go or not. It doesn't matter. You're already at the party. We're just going through this fucking weird protocol to invite that which is to go to the party of that which is, held by that which is. So will you please receive this invitation from that which is? Basically. It's like kind of this long drawn out like British formality. You know, there's a, please, you know, it's where is it? That which is, you know. So there you go. I mean, any questions, please? We got to draw this out and you feel like you didn't get your money's worth. God forbid.
I think I've read somewhere that the selfing actually takes place in a certain part of the brain. There's this woman who had a stroke, and she wrote a book called My Stroke of Insight or something like that.
Jean Taylor.
Well, if she named it that, her selfing came back. My Stroke of Insight. It regrouped. It regrouped fast. You sure it was your stroke? Yeah. I saw that TED thing once, years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's produced in the brain. I'll tell you, can I go off on a riff? This is a good one.
Yes.
This is, and I have no scientific research on this, but I use a blackout drinker, you know. And a lot of people with alcoholism, there's a swath of them that black out when they drink. Yeah, so I had many of them since I was younger. And what would happen is you'd be drinking, and then there would be a moment where you would picture yourself at a party, and then suddenly you're gone, and then you come to, and you're in another state maybe. You could travel, and, you know, all this. And then you try to figure out how long you were out, and maybe 6 hours, 13 hours. My sponsor used to travel, so he would just open the window and try to see if there was snow or anything. So he knew he was on the east or west side of the Rockies. And then he'd try to see the paper and see Idaho Express. Oh fuck, I came to Idaho. Yeah. Now, and then what happens is it's a blackout. You don't remember anything. But that's not what I believe happens. This is how I see it. I believe that the intoxication, the alcohol, gets so much, it soaks the brain, and the brain, that self it's producing, stops, or it crumbles, yes? But it has thousands of them in place, and it brings up another sense of self, and the sense of self doesn't miss a beat, because 12 hours where you're thinking you're out, you're buying airplane tickets, you're ordering drugs, your girlfriend's calling you Paul. It's a seamless transition, yet, and when this other sense of Paul arises, its idea is it's the only Paul. It has a historical story. It's always been the Paul, and that it will always be the Paul. Yeah? And basically I did better with this Paul because I never got arrested in a blackout. Where when I was conscious, I got arrested quite a lot. So this was actually a superior Paul in my view to be driven by. But I don't have a choice. So this Paul would arise and do its thing for 14 hours, thinking it's always been doing all its things and this, that. And then suddenly the brain would get sufficiently built up, and then the bigger, older seeming Paul would arise. And for it to have its semblance of oneness and continuity, it has to completely forget the appearance of the other Paul, because it would totally blow the story that there's a singular, independent, separate entity called Paul. If there was two Pauls, there'd be obviously no Pauls. Yeah? So it can't brook any information like that. So then when it comes back, it says it was in a blackout, as if you were like this. No, Pauling was doing the whole trip, and it may have been better than the other Pauling that just rose back up, which in my case it was. But it covers its tracks, because I don't remember a fucking thing. I tell you, that's what I believe a blackout is. It's like the selfing is just produced. Yeah, if one of them gets broken, it has its like emergency selfing right up there. It can't go on as long as the other one, but it's pretty good for a little short run. It starts weakening, the old one comes back up, and it's like a seamless fucking story. We just keep tranced out, go. You know, it's like we're like a baton being passed. You know what I mean? It says like fucking we're totally out there. Totally have no idea what's going on. So if there can be two selves, there can't be any selves. Because the whole idea of self is a singular unit, yes? And there isn't a singular unit. There's a movie, Moon. You ever see the movie Moon?
Yeah.
I like Moon. It's a very small production, easy, pretty much 1 star, Sam Rockwell. And it's a guy who's on this moon, and they found a new energy source on the moon to run all the technology on Earth. So they've got these huge harvesters, yeah, to mine this stuff. And there's only one person watches this whole giant harvesting farm, and he's got a 5-year contract with the company to live on this moon by himself. And so he's got his little cubicle, and he's got pictures of his wife and kids, and he's a Boston Red Sox fan, and he's got all these memorabilia of being Mike, let's say. And then he goes out and he gets confronted by something that he sees someone that looks just like him. And he brings the thing back, and it is him, but with different personality traits. And then that clone breaks the news to Mike that he's a clone. Yeah? But the funny thing is, the clone has been programmed to think it's a human, and just like what selfing does, when he hears the news that it's a clone, what hears it is the human programming. That's what catches the message. It's not clone to clone, it's clone to the human programming. That's what's happening here. That's what this whole segment talked about in the course. That thing that's communicating to us isn't communicating to us. It's communicating, it's communicating to the non-existent thing. That's why it doesn't make much sense sometimes, because it doesn't make sense to that which is seen. Yeah? It doesn't at all. So no matter how much evidence that the clone gets confronted with, that it's a clone, it will be neutered by what's going to catch the evidence, which is, I'm a human. That's exactly what selfing is. You're a spirit, you hear the news that you're a spirit, you're interested in it, but that news gets caught by you're a body. Yeah? Now you become like it, you want to become spiritual. You want to graft spirituality to the body with the hopes that it will make the body's life better, because nothing else is fucking work. Yeah? This is the dilemma. Every message gets captured, yeah? And then it's redacted, and it gets neutered by the time you get it. The message, you're a lion, gets neutered to, I can become like a lion. That's not the message. The message is, you're a lion. Oh, I got it, I can become like a lion. That's not the message. This is what happens. Knowing that, you'll see it instead of looking from it. You'll see it in its production stage instead of being the star on its stage. You have it. You're prior. You are prior to thought. There is something already so before all this processing occurs, and that's us. We are before conception of all of this. And there's the vision, seeing that this is talking about, I'm talking about, is from before conception. It is not the looking that we travel with now, it's the seeing that we are. Yeah? Why can't, if we just entertain the possibility that which we take ourselves to be may not be that may not be us, don't start looking for what you are, because you'll be looking from what you're not. Look at what you're looking from and see if it's so. If it ain't so, you may realize you're the seeing. Instead of constantly waiting for that thing to find out it's a seeing, which it's not going to find out because it's using looking. It already thinks it's something. It thinks it's a body. That's the whole path of negation. That's what Buddhism is. It's a negation. That's what non-duality is. It's a negation. It's not an affirmation of the all-beautiful oneness. It's questioning the subject-objectness that we're displaying. Are you the subject and are there objects? If there isn't,
Pure perception's been thrown around. Is there a reference point from that? Or is that...
There's no reference point, no.
Okay.
I don't think perception can be pure, to tell you the truth. As my friend said, it's an adding on, right? No. They're seeing. I don't like terms of like ultimate or pure. It means like there's something less pure or less ultimate. I like dog shit awareness, just simple. Incessant onness. Yeah. The mental state loves to nobilize things and give meaning to things and then beat itself up with that meaning. You can't make much out of dog shit awareness, I mean, really, to me it's beautiful. I mean, who's gonna kick around dog shit awareness? So, but a reference point would mean something, yeah. How could emptiness have a reference point? Unless it was empty, the reference point. Empty of what? A reference point.
But there seem to be, right?
What?
There seem to be this like
Yes.
you say, you are. You said that you are always in every event, right?